You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
He finished last week's game with a torn bicep, which is incredible. I can't imagine how much that would hurt as a defensive end, but he kept going in there.
I got bit by a mosquito at the lake, and I could barely walk the next day.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Tide.
Hunters are people, too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
Welcome to the Two and Out CFL podcast with Travis Currah and Brazilian Ty. Of course, we are part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Now, Ty, holy crap. How are you dealing with this heat? You're out in Manitoba right now. How hot was it today?
34 degrees with the humidity. That's safe to say there is some water out here.
So it got up to 30 today. I don't know what it was with the humidity in Red Deer, but tomorrow's 33, Friday's 37. What are you looking at for Friday, man?
I'm looking at my assistant doing a lot of the work.
People need to know the sacrifice you put in for the Two and Out podcast. I do not know if you were going to live to see the end of this episode. You are recording in a truck right now with no air conditioning on. We really need to hurry, don't we?
Well, I'm viewing this as kind of a workout / podcast because I should be able to sweat off about 5 pounds tonight.
Yeah, so if you sit and sweat, you are losing weight, right?
Yeah, I'm like one of those old Italian guys at the spa, or at the gym in the steam room, like on Friends when Chandler goes with his father-in-law.
Oh my God. So if by the end of this show you start complimenting the Montreal Alouettes, we know what's wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
In the Huddle with Currah and Ty on the Two and Out podcast.
The CFL will pay tribute to 12 Trailblazers over the next couple weeks as a part of the Diversity is Strength campaign. Love that the league is doing this. It's really cool. Last year, they came out with the shirts. Now, they're really putting it into action here by highlighting people from all different ethnicities and backgrounds to really show what makes the CFL and what makes Canada great. For sure, and Canada is, I know it's a terrible cliche, but it's a melting pot. It is a country full of people it's full of people who have immigrated from other countries and have built a life, and now their kids and their kids' kids, are living here, and they're first generation, second generation Canadians, and it just shows like the people that can come together and make a community, and that's exactly what the CFL wants to try to do as well. And I think it's just awesome. Yeah, they're telling some amazing stories, from Joey Moss in Edmonton to Neil Hughes growing up Métis in Regina. Man, there are some really amazing stories to be told here. We got Obi Khan from Winnipeg. He's a Muslim of Pakistani descent. So if you want to see all these amazing stories, CFL.ca/DIS. Of course, that's standing for Diversity is Strength. Now, we get to this here, and I think a lot of people across the league have praised Commissioner Randy Ambrosie for taking swift action on players that have gotten into legal trouble, especially when it comes to violence against women. Now, the CFLPA came out on Wednesday saying they are going against the league, that they might be violating a labor agreement by suspending players charged with crimes that they really maybe have not been convicted with yet. What do you make of this? I don't know the CBA off the back of my hand, but I'm assuming that there is a morality clause somewhere in there, or an ethics clause, where
you do have to uphold a certain amount of decorum off the field. And if you're not doing that, you can be held in violation. And if your name comes up in one of these cases, I don't think you're, being an upstanding member of the community, to say the least.
Of course, the league has come out and said that they look at each situation by a case-by-case basis and using the best and most reliable information available to them. And they're not going to really say anything more because these are in front of the courts right now. But I look at it as the CFLPA basically doing their job. They have to stand up for the players in good and bad situations to help them keep a job. That's basically what the Players Association is there for.
It is to protect the players' best interests, and that's what the commissioner is doing for the owners at the same time. So, I mean, I don't know if the CFLPA really has a leg to stand on, but they do have to come out and say something. And maybe this is now going to be part of the new CBA when it gets negotiated at the end of this year. There will be some wording might change or something or other like that. I think this might be a first step towards that. But as of right now, I'm sorry, but if you are even in, it's the same with Roberto Osuna with the Jays right now, now he's with Houston. He hasn't been convicted. He hasn't gone to trial yet, but the MLB has still suspended him for those 75 games because they obviously knew something. And, it was domestic violence, so they have a policy for that. I don't know if the CFL does, but Randy Ambrosie is sure as hell trying to put one in, and I have no problem with it.
You know what? And these things, and I know there's the innocent until proven guilty thing, but these things don't just pop out of nowhere.
No.
I mean, if you're just a good guy,
they do.
Yeah, exactly. It is very rare. I'm not going to say that they do, but I mean, you put yourself in these situations, whether you like to do. It was the thing with Ben Roethlisberger and even Kobe Bryant. I mean, you're putting yourself in these situations, man. You kind of bring them on yourself. They don't just come out of nowhere. So you learn from that stuff. The Riders are off this week, but a little bit of news to talk about there. They signed Luchez Purifoy really fast, and they're on bye this week. We'll see if they end up working him in to that defense in Saskatchewan, but Ottawa was using him quite a bit. They were actually using him on returns as well, and in the Toronto game, Toronto was really picking on Luchez Purifoy quite a bit, and he took some bad penalties. And there were rumblings actually on Twitter today that the Purifoy release from Ottawa was not a football or financial move, which I just find really hard to believe. They're going to get Sherrod Baltimore back in there, who was, I thought, a good option as a rookie for the RedBlacks last year. So I think they're okay. Their secondary's given up a lot of yards, so something wasn't going well with the Purifoy experiment, I guess, in Ottawa, but he might be able to do some good things in Saskatchewan.
And Saskatchewan, you can't go wrong adding another corner or a defensive back.
That too,
because they're one injury away from Duron Carter moving back there,
and he's got some CFL experience, and that is big as well.
Oh, for sure. You can't. There is something to be said for experience. Sure, he's gotten picked on a little bit this year, especially last week against Toronto. He's still a veteran, can still make plays. And like I said, depth is never a bad thing.
Speaking of veterans, we didn't talk about this on Tuesday's show, but Chris Jones ended up working out Terrell Owens on Sunday. And Jones was quoted on beginning of the year saying football is a young man's game. Now he's working out a 44-year-old receiver.
Okay, so I'm gonna list off some names here.
Okay.
Bakari Grant, Rob Bagg, Chad Owens. Why were they cut? Because football is a young man's game. Am I wrong? Is that was what Chris Jones said?
That's what he said.
Why the hell are you working out a 44-year-old Terrell Owens?
It doesn't make sense to me. It's not like they need to sell tickets or merch in Regina.
If you're working out Terrell Owens, call Bakari Grant. Maybe he's willing to come back. Call Rob Bagg. Maybe he's willing to come back. I can't mention Chad Owens because I didn't have him on my list, and he's still mad at me. But give any one of those three guys a call and see if they want their spot back. Like, I don't get it. Terrell Owens hasn't played football in what, since 2011?
Yeah.
So why? Why? You can't say one thing and then talk out the other side of your mouth, 3 months later, and work out Terrell Owens at 44 years old. I'm pretty sure people caught on to that.
And I saw some people saying that, hey, you can use him for the jump ball in the end zone. That's not a CFL play. When you're on the 10-yard line or whatever, you still have 20 yards of end zone. So the jump ball thing is really non-existent in the Canadian game. That is basically
to a point
exclusive, I think, to the NFL when you're on the 1-yard line and you throw those 3-yard fades or whatever. That really doesn't happen.
Oh, for sure. Red zone offense for sure. I find in the CFL, if you are going to throw the jump ball, it's more, to move down the field to try to make a big play.
Exactly.
It's not used that much in the red zone. I think there's a lot of, you can still run a post, you can still run a corner out, you can run a really good out with the amount of guys you can have in motion and, make you don't even have to run a pick. You can make the defense pick themselves with the routes that you run. There's just so much room that you don't need that 50-50 ball. But like I was saying, it is used more. Like you see it with Duke Williams, you see it with the taller guys, SJ Green. They'll throw jump balls to them. They'll throw those 50-50 balls, but it's not really that much in the red zone. It's more to move the ball down the field, maybe get a penalty call and, get a first down that way.
Yeah, those are 45, 50-yard plays. They're not just the red zone plays here. Now, I'll admit, I'm a T.O. fan. I'm a fan of the guys with the big personalities. And that might come from me being a wrestling fan since the age of 3. Because I like a guy, if he can't do it in the ring, if he's got it on the mic, I'm a fan of that guy. But how could a locker room function with Terrell Owens and Deron Carter in the same room and possibly on the same offense? I don't know how they could reign and handle that.
It would be like DX all over again, where you didn't have but I'm not talking old DX. I'm talking like Attitude Era DX.
Yeah.
Not after Shawn Michaels found Jesus.
Yeah, when he was still a...
Yeah, when Attitude Era DX, there wasn't enough camera time for Triple H and Shawn Michaels. There just wasn't. That's how good it was. I'm not saying that the offense will be good, but the drama coming out of that room and the quotes will be that good if they ended up on the same offense. And it would basically be a 24-hour news feed for the Regina media.
Maybe we can be done talking about Johnny Football if this does happen.
Oh, wouldn't that be the best?
Let's talk about this week's games. There are only 3 of them.
Join 2 and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were.
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca.
Enough of talking about it. There has to be consequences.
And pick'em.cfl.ca.
So we start with Edmonton versus BC. It is a late game here. And you know what? I think that's a big consideration when we talk about, and this is totally off topic, bringing in a Maritimes team to the CFL. The time zones are going to be an absolute mess. Like, basically, these 8 o'clock starts in Vancouver, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, I should say,
will be 1:30 in Newfoundland. Or I guess, 1 o'clock in Halifax. I believe it's 5 hours.
Wow. So the travel, there is a lot that goes into putting another team into the East for a country this big. So even as it is, this game's going to start at 10 o'clock out east in Toronto and Ottawa and Montreal. And speaking of Toronto, hopefully you guys are staying dry out there. Ty, did you see that rainstorm?
I did, and I was kind of jealous.
100 millimeters of rain. You were hoping you had that when you're working in the 34 degrees.
I wouldn't be working, I tell you that right now. I would have actually had time to prep for this show.
Send that rain out west, because the wildfire smoke here in Alberta, the air quality, and BC really needs it. So,
and I know down in Outlook, that area, McCrory, they're already harvesting because it's so dry.
Really?
So yeah, we need it.
August 8th, and it's the harvest.
Yeah.
Holy crap. So Edmonton versus BC. This game happened in week 3, but the Lions, a little bit different team now. It was 41-22 for the Eskimos. Jonathan Jennings had that start. The Lions actually had an early lead in that game, but now the Lions have added Sean Lemon. Looks like he's going to be starting opposite of Odell Willis. But you got to assume it's going to be a 3-man rotation there with Gabe Napton in tow, and we got Travis Lulay as the starter. The Eskimos are starting to get a bit healthy here. Justin Sorensen, Forrest Hightower, Jameel Smith, Mike Moore, and Godfrey Onyeka all get on the roster, so they're getting healthy at the right time here. Now, CJ Gable goes into this game without a backup. It will be Calvin McCarty as the backup for Mr. Gable in this one, as we have Jordan Robinson going back to the practice roster. On the BC side of things, Trayvon Van listed as a starter for the BC Lions as Jeremiah Johnson aggravated his ankle injury on Monday. Chris Rainey is going to get back in the lineup, as well as Shaq Johnson. Now, the Lions have the third worst pass and rush defenses in the CFL, so Eskimos is a good idea to load up on here. Now, I've been playing with some lineups today.
Let's be honest, there's 2 teams to load up on this week.
Yeah, there is. There totally is. Now, I made a lineup, you're not going to believe this, that actually had Mike Riley and Duke Williams, but the rest
and nothing but $2,500 guys.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So I don't really know if I want to go with that. But I think CJ Gable is a pretty good pick against that rush defense in BC.
Oh, for sure. And he has proven this year and towards the end of last year that he is a top tier running back in this league. And now that he is actually getting to show it, it's something to marvel at, really. He's so much fun to watch. And, with no backup other than Calvin McCarty, I don't know if they would be willing to put Calvin McCarty in, late in a game to try to spell Gable. If it's close and they want to kill time, I think Gable would still get the majority of the carries. But if it's a blowout, you could see McCarty come in for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Riley and Stafford stack is a little bit easier, obviously, to pull off than the Duke Williams and Mike Riley one. Williams had an off week last week. I really can't see that happening again. Now, Travis Lulay is a really cheap option. He is the cheapest of the starting quarterbacks this week. Do you have a situation where you like starting him against Edmonton?
Oh, yeah. Edmonton has proven that their pass defense, while they're not giving up a whole ton of points necessarily, they are giving up a crap load of yards because they play such a soft zone that it's really hard not to think about picking Travis Lulay, especially at that price point.
Yeah, I really don't mind picking Lulay either. He seems, obviously the Lions are a bit different offense when he's there. Manny Arsenault has been having some games. Obviously, I kind of ignored last week because when you're against the Calgary defense, it seems it's a completely different animal than the rest of the league.
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of just ignore what happened there.
It's like the Mike Riley one-off game where he scores 41, but you only score 4.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite when you play Calgary.
Now, I really like Ricky Collins as a sleeper this week. The last 3 weeks, he hasn't put together big numbers. He's only had 2 catches in each of the last few games here. But he had 7 targets against Winnipeg, 10 against Ottawa, and he had 4 targets last week against Calgary. If you're looking for a cheap receiver to fill up your lineup, I'm putting him in my lineup, so I might just have to eat it if he does bad. He's just over $4,000. So if you believe there is some room in that zone defense for Edmonton, hey, hopefully for Eskimos fans, they're going to play just as aggressive as they have been the last few weeks. Then maybe there is some room for a Ricky Collins game here in Vancouver. I like him, I think.
And he averages just over 9.6 points against Edmonton, averages 9 points, in the last couple of years in games that he's played. Not a bad option for what he's at. If he can get, 4 or 5 catches and close to 80 yards and a touchdown, you're laughing.
You're absolutely laughing. Who you picking to win, Ty?
I got to take Edmonton. I know I said their defense gives up a lot of yards and everything, but Mike Riley, it's just so hard to bet against him. And this BC team hasn't, really... With Lule, they're totally different than they are with Jennings, but I just don't see it yet.
Man, I actually could see this game going either way. But BC's got the 5 days. They played Calgary on Saturday. Edmonton has a full week. They're getting healthier. I think Riley likes to go play well in BC because that's where he was first. Mm-hmm. But, I'm going to have to go with Edmonton in this one as well.
Full disclaimer, I got lost Saturday night at somebody's farm. I was at the lake all day Sunday and Monday morning. My prep is subpar to what it normally is, so I'm really just flying off the seat of my pants here.
Man,
it's all feel this week. It's all feel.
It's all from your heart. You're going to have the best week of the season. I guarantee it.
I like that.
Man,
I like that.
I've been all over the place this week, too. So I was camping this weekend in Banff, and then, I unloaded my stuff. This is so stupid. And then I realized that I left my big cast iron pan that I put a lot of time into those things with the seasoning and all that stuff. It's less and less sticky every single time I use it.
You've never washed it, right?
Exactly. And then...
it's the best. Everything tastes like bacon.
And then I realized I didn't bring it home along with my portable grill. So I get a hold of the campsite, and they're like, yeah, it's still here. I remembered what bear locker I put it in and everything. And I put a thing on Facebook, and somebody said, hey, I'm going to Banff, and I'll pick it up for you. Well, today... they went to the campsite to pick it up, and the campsite said, hey, about half an hour, somebody was here to pick up the stuff.
Oh, somebody stole it because they knew you left it there.
Come on.
That is unreal.
But how did they know?
I'm sorry, but that's hilarious.
How did they know?
It has to be somebody on your Facebook friend list. You think it's
somebody I know?
I bet you it was Patrick, and I bet you're never going to get it back, or you'll get it back as a Christmas present.
If that shows up under the tree from my brother, I am going to bang him over the head with that pan.
I will come over and shake his hand and drive him to the hospital. That's a straight boss move.
I took it down as soon as somebody stepped up, so if they saw it, and they went to Banff to pick up this bad boy.
Good on them.
So somebody's enjoying the fruits of my labor with that pan.
You got to be thinking it would have been cheaper to just go buy your own than drive all the way to Banff.
Yeah, if somebody actually saw that on Facebook and took the time to...
But the sweat equity that you put in.
That's what I'm more upset about. My whole place smelling like canola oil. Oh, whatever. I guess I got to kiss that one goodbye. Let's talk about Hamilton and Winnipeg. This is another game that happened earlier this season. The Ticats beat the Bombers by 2 touchdowns, 31-17. But both teams, I think, were a lot different then. Chris Streveler was starting for the Bombers. Alex Green was not there in the backfield for the Tiger Cats. He had 2 touchdowns last week. For the Tiger Cats in this one, they might not be seeing Adrian Tracy at defensive line. The Ticats actually have the worst rush defense in the Canadian Football League, giving up over 156 yards a game. That's kind of hard to believe. Larry Dean, Simone Lawrence, Ted Laurent, you'd think these guys would be tough to run against.
You would think, but look at the teams that they've had to play against. Like, they've faced some pretty good running backs.
They have.
Early in this year.
There's a lot in this league right now.
Yeah. Those are guys that are definitely tough to stop when you look at it. Don Jackson, we didn't really know what Don Jackson was going to be.
Yeah.
And he had a pretty good game, an okay game. But then you got Edmonton, then Winnipeg, and Saskatchewan back-to-back, and then Ottawa, Montreal. Montreal, we make fun of Montreal a lot, but, Tyrell Sutton's still really freaking good.
He is.
So they've kind of gone through the ringer of running backs, and they still have to play Toronto twice, and they still have to play BC twice, and then they still got Ottawa 2 more times. They're in tough, but every team has to play these guys. It's just I don't know what makes them susceptible, but early on in this year, it doesn't look very good.
It might be the focus on the pass defense because it's the exact opposite for the Hamilton pass defense. They are top 3 in the league there. They're actually only second to Hamilton right now, or to Calgary, when it comes to pass defense. So they're tough to pass against. The rush defense, not so much so far.
If you had Jerry Glanville as your DC, would you really want to give up a 30-yard pass and go back and look him in the eyes?
Probably not. And I'm happy that guy's in the CFL right now. He's great.
He is so good. I just want to see him. I want to see him get mad at somebody and take off his sunglasses.
Ooh.
Because then we get the CSI Miami meme, and then we can get the music behind it, and it's even better than when Caruso does it.
Oh, I want to see this.
It would be unreal. We've gone off the rails.
The
finally.
Winnipeg Blue Bombers could be without Maurice Leggett in this one. As for the Bomber defense, they're top 4 in defense in both rushing and passing. They continue to defy the odds by still forcing turnovers left and right. I think it's been 3 years now that people have said this defense won't keep this up.
Is this the week it stops? I don't know.
And you know what? Jeremiah Mazzoli has thrown 6 interceptions, and up until now, he's done really well at protecting the ball. He's going to need to do that if they want to beat Winnipeg.
Yeah, he needs to limit the mistakes. Yeah, I don't want to say play perfect football because you don't need to do that against Winnipeg. You need to limit the mistakes, not give them an opportunity to get turnovers, and you can beat them. You have to finish drives, though, and I think that's going to be the big thing. If Hamilton can finish drives, and they've got a real shot at winning this ballgame. If they're just kicking field goals, I don't think they have a shot.
Andrew Harris costs $10,136.
Is that a lot, or?
It's the second most in the CFL as far as TSN CFL fantasy goes. I've got him in my lineup this week, though.
He averages 14.9.
Now, I couldn't do Mike Riley, Duke Williams, and Andrew Harris, but maybe you can do that and start no one else.
Well, if Mike gets 41 points and Andrew Harris goes off for 30, and then if Mike's throwing for 45 to 40 points, Duke's probably getting 25 of those. You might end up top 5 a week in your league. But in the last couple of years, Andrew Harris has averaged right around 14.9 in 5 games. So $10,000, I got a little bit of a problem with. But he is the number 1 running back this week with only 3 games going. Prices are going to be a little bit higher and inflated, but I'd have a really hard time paying that much.
Who you picking to win?
I'm going to take Winnipeg, just because I think that they're going to be able to not pick apart Masoli so much, but they're a defense that capitalizes on mistakes, and we know Masoli this year anyway has been a little susceptible to the interception, so I see them turning the ball over a couple times and taking this one.
Taking Winnipeg, too. They're off the bye. They're at home, and they've looked really good lately. They smashed Toronto twice in a row, and before that they did lose to BC, but since that loss they've looked really good. So I'm going to go with the Bombers as well at Investors Group Field. Before our next game, the last one of the week, got to say thank you to ATB Financial. Now, of course, Diversity is Strength Week coming up this week and next in the CFL, but ATB helps support all Albertans, whether it's rain, shine, or rainbows. They've got you covered. Happy Pride. They actually partner with Camp Firefly and the Jasper, Lethbridge, Edmonton, and Calgary Pride Parades. ATB accepts all Albertans, so they are a part of the Diversity is Strength as well, I think we can say. atb.com/pride for more information there. The last game of the week, it's God's gift to football, Johnny Football, with the Montreal Alouettes against the Ottawa RedBlacks. Ottawa won the first matchup 28-18 in week 4. Brad Sinopoli, for some reason, just lights up the Montreal Alouettes, and he's been lighting up everyone this season. He put up 148 yards in the Owls in this one, and William Powell had 138 yards. Now, the Owls are second last in rush defense, I'm
surprised they're that high.
Yeah, and they're last in passing defense. So it might just be a product of the offense when they get out there and get 2-and-outs every single time. Maybe they are the official team of the 2-and-out podcast when it comes to 2-and-outs. They gotta lead the league in that category.
And come November or come October, they'll be 10th because the Rouge et Or will surpass them in defense.
Yeah, Jacques Cartier actually tweeted us. Maybe if you do put Al's jerseys on the Rouge et Or, they could win a few games. But will they be under the salary cap? Will
no,
the Rouge
definitely
et
not.
Or be?
Guaranteed they wouldn't be.
They'd be fined left and right.
Mark my words, I am going to follow the Rouge et Or defense this year, and I'm gonna find out. Granted, I know that the offenses in that league aren't the greatest, but I just want to see, because we make this joke. Like, let's see what happens.
That's instead of the NFL versus CFL All-Star game, we need the Rouge et Or versus the Montreal Alouettes game.
That'd just be so good, because then maybe we find out Manziel can only play against college defenses.
You know what, man? I rewatched that game, Hamilton and Montreal. Of course, Manziel, he made some magic happen with evading some defenders here and there, and he does his little float. It's not even a throw. It's just kind of it's almost like a three-point shot in basketball that Sutton couldn't ring in, and there was another one that actually was caught. I think defenses can figure that out, though, and once they get a hold of him, it's not gonna end well. But if he can build on that, I don't know. Maybe he can make things happen here. For the Ottawa RedBlacks, here's a sleeper that I really like this week, R.J. Harris, $2,500. 3 weeks in a row, he's had at least 9 points. He averages actually 10 points a game over the last 3. So it's not a bad option, I think, this week.
No, and especially with the defense he's going up against, he might, you do still have, Sinopoli, Spencer, and Ellingson, but they can't get every pass thrown to them. I mean, R.J. Harris has a chance to really beat up on a really bad defense this week for sure. Yeah,
the Owls have given up 18 touchdowns. It is the most in this. Those are passing touchdowns, by the way. That is the most in the CFL so far. So if you want to start yourself, Trevor Harris, I get the thumbs up. I'm going with the all-Harris team this week. Andrew, Trevor, and RJ.
No
reaction.
I have a little different mindset when it came to my lineup. It might be a little obvious because people know how I feel, but.
Okay, did you stick with the lineup you texted me earlier? We'll get to that right away here.
Maybe.
Okay, I am so happy to talk
early.
about this.
It's early, though. It's early.
Is there a possibility that Montreal can steal this one?
No, stop right now.
Okay,
no.
Manziel's going to start. Vernon Adams is hurt. John Bowman is hurt. He's got the torn bicep. He finished last week's game with a torn bicep, which is incredible. I can't imagine how much that would hurt as a defensive end, but he kept going in there.
I got bit by a mosquito at the lake, and I could barely walk the next day.
Where was the bite?
Right, like where the top of my foot comes up to my shin, like right in that crease.
Oh, those are brutal.
You can't scratch it enough, right?
That is the worst place to get a bite.
And now it's bleeding.
If you want a sleeper for the Alouettes, I really like William Stanback. So 2 weeks ago, he had 47 return yards. Last week, he had 119 return yards to go with 55 yards on the ground. So there is a cheap running back option. If this game goes the way a lot of people think it's going to go, the Owls are going to be blown out, and they throw Stanback in there to get some more rushing yards, which, if they keep building this guy up, he could be the successor to Tyrell Sutton in a season or two in Montreal. So I don't mind taking Stanback as a sleeper. So there's some really cheap options if you really do want to fit Mike Riley into your lineup this week. But back to the question. You don't think there's a possibility that Montreal steals one here?
No, okay, let's start with the quarterbacks. Whose quarterback is better?
Well, Ottawa.
Whose receiving core is better?
Ottawa.
Whose running backs are better?
I think that's a push.
That's a push. Okay, I'll give you that. Whose defense is better?
Hey, Ottawa gave up 42 points last week, and Montreal
to
gave
a rookie.
Exactly.
They had no film on them. Okay, this is the be-all, end-all. Whose coach knows what they're doing?
Okay, you got Ottawa there.
Yeah, I rest my case.
Okay, you're picking the RedBlacks?
Yeah, in more ways than one, you could say.
Yeah, well, good. I'll pick the RedBlacks too. Which of the big three in Ottawa is going to have the biggest game? Is Ellingson finally going to break out? He's like $5,690 right now in TSN CFL Fantasy. This might be the cheapest I have ever seen him on that game. So if he's going to break out with the amount of passing touchdowns that Montreal gives out, this might be the week, but traditionally, Sinopoli has lit up the Alouettes. Spencer broke out last week. Who's going to be the big game this week?
I still think it's Sinopoli. I mean, you got to ride the hot hand, and he's been so good this year, and he plays so well against Montreal. You know, they're the second highest average that he has. He's averaging 19.2 points this year.
Wow.
And the last 3 weeks has been 34.1, 17.2, 21.9.
He's a PPR monster because they keep throwing him the ball too.
Yeah, and in those 3 weeks, 11 catches, 9 catches, 7 catches. So that's 27 points right there.
That's awesome.
Right, and then he's averaging over 100 yards a game in those last 3 at 114. You know, I don't know how you go away from him, or else he's going to end up like Goldberg. Like we saw his mugshot, right? That's why you keep riding the hot hand. If you don't put him in the shootout and you let a cold Julie the Cat go in there, it just ruins a guy. So you ride the hot hand this week, I think, still.
All right. Now, Joe Balaneski gave us a backhanded comment on Twitter by saying, we give the best fantasy analysis, but we're always wrong. I'm not really sure how to take that. So who's the Brazilian tie player of the week where you think he is just going to go off and then he does nothing? Or I think this is the Brazilian tie player of the week where you think he's going to have a so-so game and then just lights it up. I think last week it was Deontay Spencer. The week before, it was Mike Riley. Who's it going to be this week?
That is a great question. I'm going to have to go with Emmanuel Arsenault. It's early in the year. This is a game that he should, be able to get something done because of the defense. But I haven't seen much from him to suggest that is going to happen. So I'm going to go with Arsenault.
So there's 170 yards and 3 touchdowns right there.
Yeah.
Who's your lineup?
Well, let's see. Quarterback, Trevor Harris. Running back, William Powell.
Oh.
My other running back, Brendan Gallander's really hoping for a blowout and that he gets some carries. Brad Sinopoli, Deontay Spencer's my wide receivers. RJ Harris is my flex. And I couldn't decide on a defense, so I just picked Ottawa. And I have $94 left.
That is amazing.
This could change, but I doubt it.
So my lineup is anchored by 3 stars and 3 sleepers. So I've got Trevor Harris, Andrew Harris, and Duke Williams. But I've got William Stanback, RJ Harris, Ricky Collins, and the Ottawa defense. So I'm pretty sure about Harris, and Williams. I'm not so sure about Stanback, Harris, and Collins, but I spent a lot of money.
Stanback's going to get a lot of return yards because they're going to get the ball kicked to him a lot.
Yeah, so he could get himself 175, 200 return yards, and that's a nice day right there.
So if I score a lot of points with my lineup, I know Stanback should be getting a lot of points for you.
$346 in my lineup there, which I don't like, man.
That's got to be killing you.
It absolutely is. I actually made a lineup. Oh, I had $1 left, and I was like, do I just leave it? But I'll stick with this $346 left. You know what? I kind of wish CFL Fantasy was like Cutthroat Kitchen, where you win the money that you have left over.
I like it.
Oh,
and who doesn't love Alton Brown?
Exactly. The greatest television host in TV right now. He's the reason I'm watching Iron Chef again.
Good Eats was the ticket.
So there's a new channel. It's called the Cooking Channel. My PVR is full of Good Eats right now.
They're all repeats. You do know this, right?
I do, but I watch stuff and then I start cooking like Alton Brown.
Well, if I come across what's her name, Giada, whatever, I usually stop.
Oh, we had some fun today. Well, you have some fun in Manitoba, and you stay cool. How are you feeling after 40 minutes here?
Moist.
So many people got so mad at you for that word.
Exactly.
There's the name of the podcast. We are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. If you like Two and Out, you're probably going to find something you like at the Alberta Podcast Network. There's a wrestling podcast on there, Best Wrestling Podcast. I know they'll keep you covered for SummerSlam that's coming up in a couple weeks, so check those guys out. There is every topic, everything on there. Give us a rating, a review, a subscription on iTunes. It helps other people find Two and Out, and we will talk to you Monday morning after the 3 games this week. Enjoy, and Brazilian Ty, go have a shower, okay?
It'll be my second one in the last hour and a half. I think I worked harder now than I did all day.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.